Okay, welcome everyone. Just checking in with. All right, there we go. Looks like we're ready to go. All right, thanks. Welcome to the first meeting of the year for City Council. This is a special meeting, not our regular City Council meeting, but we are located at the Veterans Memorial Hall. For our viewers out there, the start time for this is 5 o'clock, and we're located at 209 Surf Street. We do have a quorum. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start off first with public comment for items on the agenda, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Collins for the staff report. Anybody for public comment at this time? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and bring it back. And Scott, would you like to introduce the item?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council members. Scott Collins, City Manager. So just going to talk briefly about the strategic goal setting and budget process recommendations for the calendar year 2018. I would like to get input and direction from council. So we'll just go over quickly the recommendation and then review the strategic framework at the very high level and the budget process for the past several years. And we'll discuss the proposed objectives review for this year, the proposed budget process for this year, and then the calendar for 18 and any questions and discussion that council may have. So the recommendation is to review and approve the proposed calendar for the year and the approach for the strategic objectives and budget process through the adoption of resolution number 218. City Council several years ago adopted a strategic framework process. Really the goal of doing that is to harness all city resources, energy and budget to align the overarching needs and desires of the community together and linking all those things to create a standard approach that institutes strategic planning with all facets of the city. This is a best practice in local government and really all organizations. So the city is well on its way to doing that and really making it part of the institution. The framework that was adopted by council several years ago stipulates that there's a 10-year budget forecast so that you have a sense of looking at the out years where we're going financially. And then you have a high-level goal setting every 4 years to come after the presidential election. And then every 2 years is a review of the objectives that help you help you achieve the goals that you set out. And then a 1-year budget process every year. City Council adjusted the framework last year to bring in an annual review of the objectives as opposed to waiting to every other year, as the city attempted to narrow down the focus from 10 goals and 80 objectives, which were established the year before, to a more manageable 4 goals and 30-plus objectives for last year. The goals that were established were complete the wharf project and the One Water program, improve infrastructure and public spaces, achieve economic and financial sustainability, and review and update significant city land use plans. In my review, in the 2 months I've been here, work continues on all of these objectives. In some we haven't started, so that's kind of a good starting place for the discussion tonight, is to really think about, what's feasible, what's achievable in the remainder of 2018. As far as the budget is concerned, it helps establish the linkage between the goals and the financial resources of the city. The calendar is adopted annually and includes, as I said before, that 10-year forecast. There's a mid-year budget update with amendments as necessary, and then your annual budget process, which includes CFAC involvement and then budget study sessions to allow for a lot of presentations, question and answer, and then ultimately a more formal approval process. So what staff is proposing for consideration tonight is that City Council convene a retreat in February, which would be open to the public. City Council, executive staff, and the community come together, have it professionally facilitated, and the main thrust of the convening of the retreat is to review the objectives and how we're doing in those, and then create a focused and feasible and achievable work plan for 2018. Community input would be part of that process, as well as the formal adoption of the actual objectives later on in February. And in years past, the advisory body has played heavily into the formation of the objectives and creating work plans that align with those objectives, and that was a pretty lengthy process last year. So City Council didn't really formally adopt their objectives until May. And as the City Council is in its second year, staff is advising that we forego that process, that City Council just do the review and approval of their own objectives, and that you bring the advisory body into the formulation, a reassessment of the 4-year goals next year would be a good opportunity for them to be involved in the process so that you can get underway and begin implementation of these objectives. Regarding the proposed budget process, we see it being pretty similar to last year, plus the inclusion of the CFAC review, which is on the Elmo arm, shows that we've added those dates. So you have the revised calendar, council, and Dana will show the audience what that looks like. But ultimately, we're looking at the February mid-year review plus a 10-year forecast. There you go. And then after that, we'll begin really the budget process for the next fiscal year, which includes a lot of internal discussions, bringing discussions back to CFAC, then ultimately to City Council. And what we're proposing a little differently than last year is to join the 2 study sessions on back-to-back days or nights on May 8th and May 9th. The reason being is that last year they were separated by 2 weeks, and we believe, or at least I believe, that having them in close proximity in terms of timing will allow more continuity of information, so that you don't have to go back and, well, what happened 2 weeks ago, we forget. It's all kind of there, compact. And then you have the opportunity in May 22nd to have questions that haven't been answered to bring it back, and also to have some deliberation amongst council members. And then ultimately have the June 12th or 22nd or 26th dates be the formal review and approval of the budget process, of the budget going into fiscal year 18-19. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse.
So in conclusion, staff believes that the retreat provides a great opportunity to review the objectives and really refine them and hopefully narrow them down to the core things that City Council wants to achieve in 2018, and then staff can align our resources and our work plans to ensure that those key objectives are achieved in 2018, and that Council approve the resolution establishing the calendar for the year.
Okay, great. With that, we'll start off with questions on this, and we'll look towards Red to the left. Would you mind starting us off for questions? And then once we get done with the questions, we've gone through public comment, we'll just go into discussion.
Okay. Would it be good if we chose the date tonight for the retreat?
That would be great. We know that the facilitator is available. Most staff are available on Saturday, February 3rd. We think a weekend date, not at the dais, but maybe in this room or another room in the city, and a different setup that allows for more informal dialogue would be preferred. So February 3rd is a Saturday. That seems to work for most people on the staff side. Oops. Don't know what that was. Okay. Oh, okay. Of course, it was a cat.
You'll get used to it.
Yeah. So I don't know if that date works for council. No? Of course not.
And I guess I'll ask the mayor if we want to address that later during discussion.
Yeah, I'm
Setting
just
the
writing
date.
it down. We can iron out the date.
Okay.
Okay.
And then my other question has to do with the 10-year forecast. The schedule designates this year as a year when that will be developed internally or updated internally. So are we going to be able to do that?
I think I'll answer that question. So that's my goal right now. I've been through the forecast once. I've done it in my other jurisdictions. That's been one of my responsibilities, and it doesn't look all that different than what I'm used to. I'm going to go through it again and make sure I'm comfortable, but ideally we'll be doing it in-house this year.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all.
Okay, Matt?
Yes, the one question I have looking at this calendar, Scott, is knowing that we have the various budget study sessions in May, are there any other, besides public comment, periods that the public can participate?
We could encourage folks to send emails if they aren't able to attend those meetings at this point. And it's important to note that community input is really important in this discussion, so we hope people can attend or submit their comments ahead of time. And looking at the next year, where there's going to be, at least if you follow the framework, it's logic, there'd be a high-level review of the goals and probably a lot more kind of community input, seeking that through workshops or forums where we go out and evaluate the goals at the high level and then take it to the next level of the objectives.
And the reason we're doing that in a much grander scale next year is because it's at the end of a 4-year cycle?
That's correct.
Okay, got it. And so then people could communicate via email, public comment. Do we have someone recording Facebook comments?
We have lots of folks tracking that, so when we get information via Facebook, we all kind of aware of those things.
Got it. No, I'm just trying to think and brainstorm right now the different means that people can communicate with us in this process. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's my only question.
Okay, Matt. John?
Sure, thanks, Scott. My comment overall is I like it, and I'm glad we're doing the in-house 10-year forecast. I think that's quite appropriate. Just two questions real quickly. One, how do you plan to communicate to the public to really get them excited and get them to come? Do you have a communication plan?
Yeah, we will
for the retreat.
We'll do a press release. We'll do Facebook post, and we have folks who are on Nextdoor. We want to get the word out through that. I'll use the city manager update, which seems to have pretty good readership, to encourage participation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing would be the retreat itself. Hoping, and I know I talked to you earlier about it, that there's not a lengthy team building session, that we're really actually going to do work and rather than the huggy-duggy stuff. And so that's just my opinion. And is that mainly for work, to get the work done?
Yeah, I'm going to leave it up to council to provide the input, but that's an important perspective. And there is, as I said, 31 plus objectives that are still out there lingering for this year. And we hope that the retreat will really shine light on those big things and those tangible things that can demonstrate the good work of the city and keep the big things moving forward, which is an important balance to strike.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Marlis?
Sure. Thank you. I just have a couple questions also. And the first one relates to at this retreat where we're all going to be working together. You intend to bring forward or bring back to us, I assume, progress on the objectives from last year.
That's great.
But will you also be adding new objectives that either come from staff or council, or is that going to be our only opportunity to see new things may have come up that we want to add? So the idea will be to have a full scope of list and then try to narrow it down at that meeting?
Yeah,
Is that
I mean,
part of what-
I don't think we want to forestall the opportunity to bring new items in. I mean, obviously this is a very responsive council and responsive city to the community, but those are pretty meaty 31 objectives, so it's important that council weighs those against each other and have some kind of criteria where you can do that, and that's while having a professional facilitator is so important to help navigate those conversations. But we have staff have already met to review those objectives, both in terms of updates on status of the projects, but also what are the things that maybe aren't included that maybe should be. So my assumption is that the facilitator would work individually with each council member in the
Ahead of
interview
time.
process, so you could kind of, hey, here's some things that I'm thinking maybe aren't on that list that should be, and that would be a
Okay.
good opportunity to do that.
And in terms of how it might proceed in the retreat itself, you talked about it being informal, which is great because there does need to be more interaction. So there wouldn't be formal public comment, I take it, more breaking into small groups. Is that how you would anticipate seeing it happen? Or I'm just curious if you got that far ahead.
We haven't got that far, and input tonight will be really helpful,
Okay.
Whether it's informal or formal direction.
Right. And some prioritization
Right.
of the objectives that we might come up with at
Right.
that session.
Right.
My only other comment, and it's just a suggestion,
Okay.
really, it's not a question, is that I wonder if it would be possible to put on our 2018 meeting calendar when we might be receiving quarterly financial reports, when we might be receiving the 6-month update, where we are actually have an opportunity to reallocate funds. So it would just be helpful, I think, to us to anticipate when those events are coming up, because they're happening at the same time as we're developing a budget for next year.
Right. That's a great suggestion. Do we know what those dates are? Okay.
Actually, I think that unless you want more detail, the 10-year forecast study session and mid-year budget presentation is scheduled for February 27th. That's the second meeting in February, and that gives us time to do the initial presentation to the CFAC committee on the 20th. So unless there's another mid-year report, at that time we'll also come back with a year end for 16-17. We should have audited numbers by then. And if not, we'll give
And
you...
I was just thinking of all of the various times that we are going to get information back. I understand you have the budget calendar, but somehow it'd be nice to integrate it with the meeting calendar that I'm looking at now on page 7 of 16.
Yeah, we can do that. That's no problem.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I don't have to add them in.
No, that's fine.
Thanks. Thank you. That's
Okay,
all.
Marlis? Okay, good. Just a couple quick questions on the 10-year budget forecast. Have we contacted management partners about the tool that we've been using? And I'm assuming that we are using that same forecasting tool?
I have not spoken to management partners yet, but it is their tool that they developed, so that's what I've gone through at this point. It would seem reasonable that I'll be calling at least once or twice with maybe a few questions, but it doesn't look drastically different than what other forecasts look like.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to verify that that's what we've been using over the last couple of years. Just wanted to prepare if we were going to do something new and how that would look. Okay.
nope, I'm not going to do anything new with that one. We're going to stick with tradition.
Okay, and that's okay. Just think about it. Okay. All right, so that's a 10-year forecast. And then some conversations about the outreach. So the discussion of this being a goals retreat versus a council retreat. And so I just want to, I guess, close the loop on that discussion. That it seems as though the way this is structured, this is more of a goals retreat than a council retreat. And I guess that's a discussion point for council on what the intent or what the of this might be and what the intent of council might want to end up with as far as that goes. So I guess that's what I need to circle back with council. And then the other part, as far as the process and the framework itself, I find this format in going through the process and introducing the strategic goals framework helpful in the calendar. But when we get to the 4-year mark, that outreach, and I know I've had the conversation with you offline, so I don't know if I think that's something that looks completely different than what we're doing now from the standpoint of a retreat. That's a little bit more robust, so didn't know if that's something that we should include in the conversation and what kind of expectations we would want for outreach the following year when we're doing basically 4-year goal setting. And if that's an opportunity to have some of that discussion there to shape what an outreach or workshop framework might look like. And I know there's some guidelines out there, and I think that's more of a council discussion. And then I think that kind of does it for my questions. We should probably circle back to the date, and maybe we can round up with the date on that. And if you had some comments on that, Scott.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall what our availability is. Yeah, so this is our facilitator. Garrett Olson is our fire chief for the city of SLO, who's graciously offered his services for the city of Morro Bay. Thank you, Chief Knuckles, for putting me in contact. It's an extraordinary offer, and we'll definitely repay that. So I wanted to remember in my head all the dates that would work and not work, so my apologies for...
So the only thing, good evening, Mayor and Council, I'm Garrett Olson. I'm happy to be on loan to you from your neighbors down in the city of San Luis Obispo, and honored to be helping you with your process. The only weekend that I have that's a conflict in February is the weekend of February 9th. Other than that, the Saturdays and most Fridays I'm open, and some other dates that I could move things around, whatever is the council's preference. But that's the only weekend. It might be a tough one for your staff as well, as I believe it might be a holiday weekend as well. So you may have some staff looking forward to taking advantage of a 3-day weekend.
Okay. All right. That helps. Thanks, Garrett. Thank you.
So I'll just make a follow-up comment on Saturday, because it's a routine only work day for me that I don't. So I'm sorry about that. But however, I would be available after 2 p.m. So if that helps, if it started at that time or later, if that would help your calendar, I could make myself available after 2 on a Saturday.
What was the thought of the day? Was it a full day type of thing?
I mean, depending on how much you want to take on, as Councilmember Heading so eloquently stated, you don't want to do a lot of fuddy-duddy stuff. But there could be those components of just kind of team building, but take that out. We're still looking at probably a 4 to 6 hour window of time to really both have robust discussion from the public, but also intent discussion about narrowing down that focus to those things you really want to put our energies behind. So I think realistically a 4 to 6 hour window is appropriate. So this is really at the pleasure of the council if that start time makes sense, and also considering the public component of that, if those hours would work for them.
I wonder if you did a back-to-back Friday evening, Saturday. I don't know if that is an option, just splitting it in half. And for Councilman Makowetsky, it'd be after, starting at 4 o'clock, I assume, would be the earliest on a Friday.
If I can add into that, I think it would work with my schedule if you wanted to do. I'm just thinking also not only of myself, but then also in terms of the public, the folks who work, if we did something, just an idea, from 12, if it is 4 to 6 hours, from 12 o'clock in the afternoon till 6 o'clock at night. And so in terms of your schedule, John, a Friday would work for me, selfishly, but Friday or Saturday would work for me.
Red?
I'm between jobs at the moment, so I am available. But just as a matter of interest, February 3rd is the 58th anniversary of the day the music died, when we lost Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper in a plane crash in Iowa. But that has nothing to do with the workshop. Just a note.
So you're open any dates, Marlis?
Whatever you tell me, I will be there.
Okay. That's another song.
I'll be there.
I'm fairly flexible. I see the date as far as blocked out on the 9th. I'm fairly flexible in February as well. But I kind of feel as though we should structure it for one day, and we should try to make that work. The past time 4 years ago when we did this, we did a Saturday as well, and just carved out the day and did that, and we were able to do it, have a break, and work through it, understanding some maybe some work conflicts and schedules. It seems like that's what we're going to be up against on any Saturday, is what I understand. So that that doesn't leave us with much, but I would hope that we can work through that. And so I'm looking at my two colleagues here who have the most to do as far as dates go.
As I said, the Saturdays are fine with me, but it conflicts with John. I think the Friday, it sounds to me, if you're into that sort of time, I think since I only have to adjust my schedules in a small way for Friday, that would be the least, the easiest way to do this. So I'm more than willing to do that.
Friday works fine with me. The 9th?
Second or the third, and the one thing to weigh is just what would be most accommodating for the public, to attend. Is it a Friday afternoon or a Saturday afternoon?
But we're talking about a longer session than just in the afternoon, correct?
We could. You could plow through. If you start time on Saturday, you could.
Well, let's say Friday now, because we know John is.
Well, if we
tight.
start at 2:00, you said that would. Yeah. On Saturday we start at 2. You could take it through the evening and get it done, or you can do it Friday.
And take it through the evening and get
Same
it done.
thing.
What's 8 or something?
What's going to be more accommodating for the public?
But on a Friday, we could start at noon. So
we can start at noon.
We could start at noon, and we presumably could hopefully finish by 6.
That would be more conducive, in my view.
Fine with me.
But likewise, if we were going to do the Friday from 12 to 6, we want to make sure that I'd want to make sure we put, in terms of putting it out there for the public, showing them a schedule, what's going to happen, so that they can come watch parts of it to make sure that they're feeling engaged with it as well. And that goes for the folks who do work and get done at 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, Red?
Yeah, if we do Friday, I do have an engagement at 5:30 in San Luis Obispo, but if we could set a firm finish time of 6 o'clock, I could use that to negotiate with Mrs. Davis to try to make that work.
Ground day also, so just no comment.
I think we would lock in on the times. Isn't that correct?
So we have Friday, February 2nd, 12 to 6.
12 to 6. So we'd have a
Confirmed date.
drop dead time at 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
or pumpkin time.
Yeah, the lights go off at 12.
Okay,
at 6.
lights go off at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not going to stop Matt from talking, but
Should we approve the concept first? Are you looking for a motion, Mr. Mayor?
So now we're
we should-
good on the time and date and everything, right? February 2nd, Friday, 12 to 6. And then next is the calendar itself. So we're good with the calendar with the addition of to be determined is now February 2nd.
right.
Okay.
And then we would add the dates that Councilmember McPherson wanted added in for the kind of the quarterly reporting, right? Just to call that out specifically.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, just taking notes. So we can go ahead and, do you want a motion to approve the calendar?
But the resolution?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the
As
resolution
amended.
for the, okay,
Yeah.
so we'd need a motion to approve Resolution 02-18 for the 2018 strategic goals, meetings, and budget schedule.
So I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 02-18, resolution of the City Council of the City of Morro Bay, California, adopting the 2018 City Council meeting calendar and work plan development structure and strategic planning date of February 2nd from 12 to 6 p.m.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? And of course, that's including the dates that were requested on there. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, so the calendar's done. And then any further comments on the structure of the meeting? I know we've had some, so we did have some comments on the forecasting. I think we're pretty narrowed down on that. As far as outreach, I think we covered some conversations on outreach. Okay, go ahead, Matt.
Looking at this work plan budget, all these schedules, and it's so clearly laid out here, what is the plan in terms of putting that on our website and making it easy to get through?
A couple ways to do that. One would be, again, through the city manager update. We're also working on the website on the financial reporting. Once that's approved or reviewed and approved tonight by council, we'll try to create an obvious place to find information on all of our financials, where we would include the budget calendar, and probably under the news flash, put it there as well, so that it's easy to find. And we encourage council members to share with their friends.
Absolutely. Okay, and then the other one was the team building versus the framework around goal setting. It seems like we're concentrating on goal setting at this point. Any other comments? We're just validating that. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Was there anything else that we needed to validate for discussion on this, or any other thoughts for discussion? No? Well, that was pretty simple then. Okay. Anything else from Scott?
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think with that, we can go ahead and conclude this and adjourn our special meeting, and we'll return here at 6 o'clock for our regular city council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.